Lake Forest podcast is supported by viewers, listeners, and businesses just like you. Looking for the best pool supplies? Look no further than Dohany's Pool Supplies. With a history dating back to 1967, this family-owned business offers everything families need to keep their pools clean and sparkling, from chemicals to equipment. Plus, customers enjoy free shipping on all orders. Visit Dohany's Pool Supplies today at doheny.com, DOHENY.com, to learn more. Forest Bluff Real Estate Team serves Illinois, Wisconsin, Lake Forest, and Lake Bluff. John Josephitis, Laura Lee Van Fleet, and of course Michelle Parnell. Get a free market analysis now at forestbluffrealestate.com. For the best cannabis in the world, look no further than Iliad Epic Grow. Owned by Lake Bluff's own Rich Ruzich, they are a cannabis cultivation center focusing on hard-to-find small batch products that will delight both the occasional user and ganjier. When visiting Michigan, ask for it by name. Epic Products, exceptional process. For more information, email info@iliadgrow.com. Havey Communications has been helping first responders arrive safely since 1983. It's owned by Lake Forest's own Mike Havey. Check them out at haveycommunications.com. We'd also like to say we're thankful for our Patreon supporters: Otto, John C., Helen, and Herrick. Jon Kerr.
Wow, that's quite the. I'm thinking of almost Darth Vader here on a.
Well, it was how some people look at me that way. Well, we had Halloween last night, so
yeah.
How were the trick or treaters for you? It was kind of weak, cold, bad weather.
Yeah, pretty light. Got plenty of leftover Reese's and Kit Kat and Twix and all that kind of stuff. So, but it was not a fun night to be out. Outside period.
Did you hide all the Snickers and $1 million bars and?
Yeah, I was like, I was an Almond Joy guy back in the day. People might remember the Almond Joy Mounds.
Yeah, that's old
debate
school.
Going back, yeah. So I was kind of an Almond Joy guy. Would sneak those. I remember my mom being kind of a sugar freak, or would limit the sugar intake. Me and my siblings. So yeah, I would sneak the Almond Joys and, grab a few bites of those. Yeah.
Your mom was ahead of her time. So we got the poor Chicago Public League. I remember playing at Lane and, okay, great. You play the easy CPS schedule, and then first round of the playoffs, wham, Lakeview.
Yeah. And if you look at the record, they were 0-22, right, in the first round. I mean, the CPL. So
yeah. So it's Phillips was good back, in the day, and I'm not sure why they were good. I'm surprised that the CPS can field a team, because there was a time I went, 4 years ago to Lane for homecoming, and I think they had 23 players suited up. It's a scary thing, but. So how could Lakeview be ranked that high and Lake Forest be ranked so low? I mean, everybody that is from Chicago knew Lake Forest was going to kick the hell out of them. Like, who ranks these teams?
Well, the IHSA has a football committee that does all the seedings and the brackets that come out the Saturday night after the 9th week of the regular season. And they like to keep things simple, at least initially, where they strictly go based on record. So the reason why Lakeview was seeded number 2 in the upper bracket, because in 1A, so there's 8 classes, right, in the state of Illinois. So in 1A through 6A, they split the 32 teams into 2 different divisions or brackets. They have a north bracket and a south bracket. They don't call it that. They call it upper and lower, but based on geography and where these teams are, it is based on basically north of I-80 or kind of south of I-80, right? Which we talk about in the state of Illinois, how the politics are here, right?
Right.
And so 6A being a split bracket, the Scouts had 5 wins, so they were 15th seed, and Lakeview had 7. So there were only a couple teams that had wins than they do in 6A. So Yeah, I think that there should be more discussion about having almost like an APR system or an
Yeah, right.
RPI system, right? Which is based a little more on some objectivity as opposed to just strictly record. And I think there's an argument to be made that some of these Chicago Public League schools should not even be participating in the
Right.
IHA playoffs at all. Have them do their own postseason, which is phenomenal, meaning those kids have an opportunity to play for a championship. Still try to maybe you have a prep bowl format where the Catholic League winner can play the CPL winner like it was back in the day. But what
Right.
you saw last weekend was I was impressed with the turnout, Pete, at Winamac Stadium by the Lakeview parents, and they were there the entire game and stayed at the end. Lake Forest could have won that game 80-0,
Yeah.
and they gave their kids a standing ovation, and it was almost full.
Yeah.
So the atmosphere was excellent, but competitively, no, not so much.
Well, Lakeview, for the people that don't know, that's Irving and Ashland, and that's a good throw from Wrigley. So if you don't have the money to send your kid to the private school, that's where you go. But Winamac, that's old school, and it looks like you had a good experience there because they've tightened up, their ticket taking process. What was your experience there, John?
Well, but when you mentioned Wrigley, and I'm having visions of $14 Miller Lights here in my head. So, and I'll be going down there on Saturday for the Iowa Northwestern game. So I was able to score some
Oh, nice. Okay.
some good tickets, but I got to make sure I toss a couple extra C notes in my wallet just to be able to grab a bag of peanuts and a hot dog when I'm down there. But the experience Saturday at Winamac was excellent in terms of operationally how they handle things. Now, certainly us living in the suburbs now, we're not necessarily used to having to enter a high school football stadium and have our bags checked and go through security. Not something that necessarily you have to deal with when you go to Stevenson or Libertyville or some of these other places. Right. At least the field. But they could not have been nicer. Security was tremendous. I was able to find parking only because I used my my trusty Spot Hero app on my phone and parked behind an Afghan kebab restaurant on Western Avenue. So kind of a little old school Chicago there, Pete.
Yeah.
And I can speak for some of the other parents who were there and people who I know. Same experience. And you're able to actually park. There was some parking on the street there on Western Avenue, non-permit parking. If you were lucky. So kudos to Chicago Public School Athletics for how they handled the day on Saturday.
When you said the rankings, do you think budgets should be looked at? Because I don't think Lakeview's got the same budget as Lake Forest. I have no idea. I'm just spitballing there.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption to make. We certainly would have to FOIA, the budget sheets to confirm that. But I would certainly say so. Yeah, you're going down a dangerous road if you're basing some of these guidelines on how much money that schools can kind of spend on athletics. In that case, there certainly would be some disparity there, right? And so, I think from a football perspective, it's a challenging sport to play because of the numbers you have to have, and you have to have dedicated staff, and you have to have dedicated coaches. And you certainly see that in the suburbs because you've got these coaches are also teachers, right? So people forget that sometimes they do have day jobs and they have good teaching positions, and they which is more of a side hustle. Where I think in CPS, those teachers, while some of them are very, very well paid, they do not have all the other necessities, meaning operational staff, off-season weight training, right? Yeah. All the camps, all these kind of things that you need to be able to build a winning program. So again, I would sort of separate it. I would just say, hey, just like I'm a private, kind of public guy, and I think the private school should have their own a playoff system versus public. When you see what's happening with some of these, kind of private schools and how they're sort of dominating at the IHSA level in the postseason.
Now, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, but was because I want to get to Geneva, the Vikings. Was there anything that you saw at the Lakeview game? I don't know what you could see other than you get some of your second stringers to, get some time in there. Anything you want to touch on from the game that you saw?
The only thing to touch on from the game is that, it was the first playoff game Lake Forest had played in 2 years. 2021, they made to the semifinals where they lost to eventual state champion Cary Grove. Most of the players on that team are no longer, have since graduated. There are a couple players that are still there. So I think it was a good experience, I think, for a lot of, and this is still a relatively inexperienced young team. It's got a massive junior class, which we can certainly talk about here in a few minutes. So for them just to have the experience of playing in a postseason game, I think is immeasurable. And they did what they had to do. They got out of there. They played efficiently. They dominated a team that they should have dominated, and they're healthy for the most part going into this much more challenging round 2 matchup against Geneva.
Okay, and then Geneva, they play Sen? What was it, 70-0?
Yeah, that was similar type of score. I think, Pete, it was like 50-8. I think was the final. I think Sen maybe got a late touchdown against the number 3s probably. So they could drive home happy, saying, hey, we gotta score here late in the game. Proud
Sen graduate, Mike North of the Score.
Oh, okay. Pappy, huh? Pappy's a Sen graduate. Okay, I didn't. Maybe I don't know if anybody spotted him on the sideline there at Geneva. Up there, I don't know if he gets out to DuPage, DuPage County very often, Pappy.
So what are we looking forward to? Where are they playing, number one? And, number two, like what kind of offense do they have? Like one of those triple wishbone, whatever offenses that gives us problems?
Yeah, so a primer on Geneva. They play in a conference called the Duquesne Conference, which was a relatively new conference. So it emerged from a couple different interstate aid and DuPage Valley teams kind of came together and formed this conference. They have a lot of tradition. They've been playing football, I think, since the 1920s. They've been around for a long time. They made a state championship game back in 2008 in Class 7A. So this is a program that's been good, fallen on hard times. I mean, 4 years ago, they were actually 0-9. Changed coaches. They have a young coach named Boone Thorgeson, who was a great player at Canelan High School, went to Northern Illinois. I think he's mid-30s now, so he kind of has rejuvenated the program. As I've always said, it's much easier to sort of reestablish tradition than to actually build tradition. So if you had a good program before, sometimes it just takes the right person, the right hire. So Geneva did that. And they are a team that is a quarterback. I mean, this year they are a quarterback-centric team. So if you go to the game on Friday night, you will see a quarterback number 3, whose name is Nate Stempowski. I feel like I feel there should be like a K after the P, Pete, like Stempkowski, but there's not. There's no K. It's Stempowski.
Yeah.
And he is a tremendous athlete at the quarterback position. He runs it. He throws it. Everything revolves around him. So scouts will have to kind of bottle him up, or at least as
Dan Patrick or something.
Yeah, or as Dan Patrick used to say, just sort of you don't stop him, you just try to contain him. I don't think you completely stop a guy like him. The one unknown, Pete, going into the game is Geneva has a wide receiver number 1, who Talon Taylor, who is the second ranked prospect in his class in the state of Illinois in the class of 2025. He's a current junior. Tremendous player. He's got offers from everybody, Alabama, Georgia, which is rare for an Illinois skill player. Yeah. Not an Illinois athlete, but a skill player to get those offers. But he hasn't played in 4 weeks. And so there's a lot of uncertainty as to whether or not he will suit up on Friday night. If he does, then that's a Division I player the scouts will have to account for. If not, they got to find a way to stop the quarterback, number 3.
And let's just say they rule of thumb is, you don't let your best player beat you, right? So if they somehow contain this guy, do they have a running back that can, grind it out 3 yards at a time? If everybody thinks it'll be a high scoring game, what if it's a low scoring game?
Yeah, I think a low scoring game would favor the scouts.
Yeah.
I think is this a team that has Geneva has given up only 120 points in 10 games. And they've scored. I mean, you almost have to take away the game last week, but the teams that they've beaten, they've beaten pretty handily. The teams they've lost to, Geneva, Wheaton North, and Batavia, they lost by a combined 4 points. And those two teams are really good.
Powerhouses, yeah.
Yeah, those are really good teams. So yes, they do. They have a tailback number 4, who's rushed for a little bit over 400 yards. He's got I think he's averaging about 4.5 yards a carry. So yes, they do have a tailback run game, but everything will revolve around this quarterback. So they have other weapons, other guys that they can throw to. And they've got a couple big guys on the defensive line that the scouts are going to have to block. And so, yeah, I mean, look, when you get to the second round, everybody's going to be good. It just depends on matchups. And in high school football, Pete, in this era, teams that advance into the quarterfinals, semifinals, championship game, typically the best athlete on the team is the quarterback. And that's the case, with Geneva.
I was there for the Final Four, and the Lake Forest quarterback, I mean, he pretty much did everything. When we needed the yardage, he would run. The other team was a little bit too tough for him. But in this game, is our quarterback going to have to, we're a defensive centric team, is my impression from a away 30,000 foot view of this. That's why you're on the show. But for the offense to really get going, is our quarterback going to really have to take off, and we got to see 20-yard runs, 30-yard runs, or how are we going to win on offense?
Yeah, so I think the scouts if you're looking at this from a positive perspective, meaning, okay, so what's the path to victory, right? For the scouts?
Right scenario.
And what you're looking for is, okay, how have the scouts won games this year? And the scouts have won games by outscoring teams, and they've won games by stopping people. So the scouts are finished kind of like middle. That's what I was kind of looking up here to make sure I had these numbers in front of me here. They're kind of middle of the pack in terms of the conference, in terms of points. They scored 248. Now, mind you, 49 of those came on Saturday. So they basically scored about 200 points, this year. They gave up about 208. Two of those were they got blown out back to back by Lake Zurich and by Warren, but those games did happen. So last week against Lakeview, they put up 49 points. The week before against Mundelein, which is, Mundelein was a 4-4 team, going in, a team that easily could have made the playoffs. The scouts were able to score at will against that team. They scored 35 points. They're able to run it. They're able to throw it, mostly throw it. So if you're looking for a path to victory, this becomes a shootout type game where it becomes, okay, Geneva, boom, 5 plays, touchdown. Scouts, let's go. You have to answer this. They have shown that they can be explosive. Now they want to run it. They want to run to Marty Hipple and Graham Garrigan and the inside zone, outside zone. It's kind of what the scouts do. But Danny Van Camp, who's a junior quarterback for the scouts this year, he started all 10 games. What you'd expect from a first-year starter. He's had some really good games. One's not so good. But the last couple games, he's looked really good. He has a big arm, and somebody who can also run, who can get out of the pocket and scramble, but he's a big body, 230 pounds. If they get into a shootout, watching the Mundelein game, and even parts of other games, they've shown that they can score. That being said, I think historically, the scouts win playoff games. It's 24-20, 2017. That's typically how they win these games. I think if they're going to win this game against Geneva, it's going to be bottling up this quarterback, make him good, not great, force them into throwing situations, and maybe get an extra possession on a takeaway or a key 4th down stop of some kind. But the scouts are going to have to hit explosive plays. They're not going to be able to grind it out against this team and go 8, 9, 10, plays.
Right.
But they've shown that they can do that, and they have some skill position guys who have emerged here the past couple of weeks.
Well, hopefully that number 1 is a little rusty, not being on the field for a while. Maybe that'll come into play, get an interception. Who knows? Crystal ball time. Get ready with your mouse. The path, let's just say, all right, Scouts win 10-9. How's the path looking for the next round with your
Yeah,
crystal ball?
10-9. Yeah, I'm having visions of like, Tommy Myers, back when back in the day when I played. That's how we won games, just kind of, cross buck left, cross buck right, and let's just kind of, try and get out of here with a low scoring game. If so the Scouts are able to advance, they will more than likely face Cary Grove. And because Cary Grove plays Highland Park in the
Yeah,
second round. And hey, shout out to our friends up there at Highland Park. Great season for the Giants, but their season's going to end on
yeah.
Saturday. They're not beating Cary Grove.
Uh,
So that game will be at Cary Grove more than likely, next Saturday. The Scouts have not beaten Cary Grove in the postseason. They played them a couple different
yeah,
times, most recently, 2 years ago. If they're able to somehow stop Cary Grove, which of course historically they do run a option offense, grind it out, and usually play also really good defense. But the defense is helped by the fact that they usually control the clock. If they ever get by Cary Grove, then Pete, they would have a rematch potentially. I mean, if things play out with Lake Zurich, which is a 6A team, a number one seed. Usually Lake Zurich is a 7A team. They dropped down this year to 6A. They are the number one seed in the upper bracket. So that's the path for the Scouts. Meaning beat Geneva. Hey, congrats. You get to the quarterfinals. You get your old buddies, Cary Grove. You're able to get back that, hey, rematch with the Bears, which would potentially, could be at, Varsity Field the weekend before Thanksgiving.
okay, then we save this for the end. You had the Lakeview game. Do you have a player of the game that you liked there in a blowout? Maybe a second stringer.
Oh man.
We'll give you time.
Yeah, I mean, there's tough.
Save it for this week.
Tough. No, that's fine. It's just off the top of my head, I'm kind of thinking of like there were so many. The starters only played like maybe 10 plays in that game.
Right.
The one play. I mean, so you can mention guys like Tommy Aberle, who played great for the 10 plays that he was there. Danny Van Camp. Scouts had this player Nate Williams, who is the son of the former Bears defensive coordinator, who's been out since the Carmel game.
Yeah.
He's played the last couple of weeks. He played. He'll be an offensive weapon for the Scouts. He's also a defensive player, really good cover corner. He played, really well. Makes the back half of the defense a lot better having someone like him because he can cover and they can shuffle, guys around. And I would say, some of the other guys who played. A player named Tommy Elliott is somebody who comes to mind, who's a guy who worked really hard all summer long. He started at the tight end position, hurt his hand, had missed almost the entire season, came back, played on the defensive line against Lakeview, got an assisted sack, helped strip the ball, which led to a touchdown for the Scouts. So he's somebody that I would mention just because he's a guy who's been beat up and sort of injured for a lot of his senior year, and having a chance to play in a game like that. And that's, kind of a lifelong memory for him and his family. Tommy Elliott.
Got it. So, hey, here's to the second stringers, everybody that played last week. Now, buckle them up, baby. It's getting real. This is not the Chicago Public League. You're going to be playing.
The B Bombers, right? The bench bombers. We used to call them back when I was playing basketball. Right. B Bombers, get out there now. No, it's going to be a lot of, kind of first stringers. Yeah, certainly.
All right. And then last part of the show, you got any thoughts on Montez Sweat? Should we have done a third round pick for him and like Chase Young and the Niners? You got a thought?
I think the Bears this to me is a move for future picks, meaning that they have a strategy here, and this is a tactic for things down the road. They obviously have to get a pass rush. I mean, they have to create matchups there on the offensive line, which they cannot do. It helps their secondary, right? When you have, I mean, look at what the Niners did getting Chase Young from the Commanders. Mm-hmm. That's a move to help the back half of their secondary. The 49ers are struggling covering people. So if you can create matchups up front, when you got Nick Bosa and you got Montez Sweat, you got Armstead and those guys can get to the quarterback, it helps the cover guys on the back end. So hopefully that will be the case for the Bears. I just think, Pete, like they got to re-sign this guy, right? I don't know. I haven't, maybe something came across this morning. Have they agreed to terms with Sweat? Because he's going to be a free agent. Well, I mean, you can't let this guy walk.
Right. Well, I got a feeling that he wouldn't have come over here if they didn't have a deal, because I believe the Bears have the most money to spend on the cap, 110, something like that. Sweat is 27, Chase Young is 30. I don't know. If I knew more, I'd be in Hallis Hall. That's why I'm doing a podcast, John. That's why I have you on here.
You and I are sitting here talking about it. Yeah. Actually, I believe Chase Young is younger. I mean, Chase Young was drafted in 2020. So he's going to be a young guy. He's probably like 25, 26.
Okay.
It just makes, I Sweat to me is a little bit more, he's kind of a higher floor, lower ceiling guy. He's just going to be a steady pass rusher, guy who's going to get you, 6 to 8 sacks, whatever it is. Young to me has a higher ceiling, but I think he's a guy who's got some maybe off the field issues or, kind of durability stuff.
You're right. He's 24. Chase Young is 24. I had that around. So Sweat's the old guy.
Yeah. Just wait. I mean, for full disclosure, I am a lifelong, I'm sorry.
I almost said
Commanders, but I'm a Redskins guy, through and through. And let's bring back the Redskins, please. New owner Josh Harris. That'd be a nice gift to all of us fans in 2024. So I'm a lifelong Redskins fan. So I was on board with these trades, because I think that you've got to build up some draft capital because, for the next coach, because Chico Rivera, love him, 85 Bears, let's go. He's going to be on the way out, and they're going to have a new coach.
Okay. God forbid I bring up any Redskin stuff to you.
I will. And don't bring up Dan Snyder, because I will go on a 10-minute rant about the evil that is former owner Dan Snyder. So
talk about Darth Vader. I don't think he's smart enough to be Darth Vader. And then Pageant. How do you think they're going to sit Justin Fields down for another week for his injury, so Pageant can get more tape and Fields won't get hurt, so they can trade him?
Yeah, there was actually a kid trick-or-treating last night dressed as Tyson. He had a couple fake tattoos on, and
sure wasn't him.
Cool. He had a wig on. Yeah, right. So I probably should have asked him for his ID, just to sort of check. Yeah, I mean, it was a nice story, right, Pete? For the 1 week against the Raiders. His family was there. It really is a fascinating story, this guy. I mean, if you read into it, the fact this guy started an NFL game is remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. But there's a reason why this guy was not a drafted player. He's limited physically. And the Justin Fields situation will kind of hang over the Bears the rest of the season until they get the quarterback situation straightened out. I've never been a Justin Fields guy, just because, again, if you watch him in college, he was never accurate. In the NFL, you have to be able to throw from the pocket. There you go. Although I think what's his name, CJ Stroud might be flipping the narrative on that, Pete. Right?
You are. I stand corrected once again. On the show. So trade deadline's over, so there's no trade. What are you going to do? Wait till draft day to do something with him? Pull out that crystal ball one last time, John. What do you think's going to go on? Because everybody's going to hold you to this now. You think the Bears will get 1 and 2, and then do something with Fields? What do you think is going to happen?
I mean, certainly there's the rest of the season to be played out, and the Bears executives, I'm sure, will be evaluating Fields the rest of the season. Most fans, those of us listening to this podcast, watching this on YouTube, have seen enough, I think, of Justin Fields. If you could look at this clear-eyed, I think the Bears are going to be looking for a quarterback. And I think they're accumulating draft capital to potentially be able to, depending on what that pick is, if they have the first pick in the draft, then they will certainly have some leverage there. Where do you draft a Caleb Williams? Do you draft a Marvin Harrison, who looks like the real deal at wide receiver? Is there another quarterback out there? Maybe it's a Drake May over in North Carolina, who's a pretty good player. Yeah, I think we're going to be back in this cycle again. The question I have you, Pete, is who will be the coach? Because do you feel like this offense, if you're going to draft another quarterback, do you feel good enough about this offensive staff and the head coach that they're going to be able to actually draft the right guy and to be able to develop him? And I think you're going to start to hear. I think you're start to hear some, Jim Harbaugh. Some Bears rumors, right? You're probably on the same line with that. I think he's probably going to be available because of what's happening over Michigan right now. So you'll probably hear those rumors. That to me is the biggest question. I think they will be looking for a quarterback. Justin Fields is not the guy. It's just a question of, does a new Bears president, remember they have a new guy in charge. I can't think of his name.
Stadium guy, isn't he?
Yeah. I think he was hired to kind of get the stadium thing going, but he used to, it's Warren, right? Can't think of his first name right now. His last name's Warren.
I just know Stadium.
Yeah. He, I think while you and I are talking right now, I think he might be out of Batavia right now, talking to the mayor and the city council out there at Batavia.
Negotiations.
Or in Geneva. So to me, the next, 10 games left or 9 games left or 8, whatever it is, are all about just, hey, accumulating draft capital, waiting for the draft, and who the next coach is going to be. And hey, trust me, as a commander, I also went to Michigan State, Pete. That's what I'm, proud Spartan. We don't have a coach. We fired our coach after the first 3-4 before the third game. So I've divested myself emotionally from my teams at this point. It's really just about what's next. And I think Bears fans are probably near that point right now.
Well, sorry to hear about your old Michigan State quarterback blowing out his Achilles up in Minnesota. So moment of silence. So he'll race Aaron Rodgers to come back.
Kirk Cousins, love you, Kirk. Go Sparty, man. Go green.
What a team. We'll go on a quick tangent and split, but you had Kirk on the team. You had who was your running back that went to the Steelers, all on the same team?
Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell, who he went to the Steelers, kind of, I think he overestimated his value, decided to sit out for a year, and things didn't quite work out. Not the best business decision for Le'Veon, but Kirk, tremendous quarterback, got us to the Big Ten championship game, the inaugural Big Ten championship. I was there in Indianapolis, 2011, against Russell Wilson and the Wisconsin Badgers. Russell got us that day in 2011, but that was the beginning of a really good run, for Michigan State under Coach Mark D'Antonio, where we made the Rose Bowl, won the Big Ten. Beat Urban Meyer. Speaking of Darth Vader, there's a lot of Spartan fans who actually want Urban Meyer to be the coach now, but that will never happen. Kind of a pipe dream. But unfortunately, what happened to Kirk Cousins? If you watch the Netflix documentary that came out, Pete, last year on quarterbacks, that's the person that he is. Mm-hmm. Like, Cousins is a genuinely good person. I mean, incredible amount of wealth. This guy is probably made as much money as any quarterback maybe in history up to this point. But he's a genuinely good person, and it's unfortunate what happened to him. He does play for the Vikings, so whatever. It's a Bears rival. Certainly good news for the Bears when they play the Vikings again. But watch the documentary on Kirk Cousins.
Absolutely, Jon Kerr. Thank you so much. Hey, people like what you're putting out there, Jon. How can they find a little bit more about you? Where do they go?
Yeah, Pete, you can go to, I've got 2 Substacks. Substack, one is if you want more Scouts football content, and there'll be plenty up there. We're recording this, and there'll be, we still got a couple days before the game is played. Right. More coming up. You can go to scoutsfootball.substack.com or just Google Scouts football, and you'll be able to find it. The other one is the Kerr Report. Kerr.substack.com. That's more my Sunday column, more political kind of current events type writing.
Well, I'd love to touch on that one day with you, Jon. Go Scouts.
Always like chopping up.
What time's the game, Jon?
The game is Friday night at 7:00 at Varsity Field. So it should be a heck of an atmosphere for a playoff game in November. That's what more could you ask for?
Come on, Scouts. You can do it. I'll be a fan for a week. Jon Kerr, thank you so much, my friend.
You got it, Pete. Pleasure.
Another great job. Over and out. The Lake Forest Podcast is supported by viewers, listeners, and businesses just like you. Looking for the best pool supplies? Look no further than Dohany's Pool Supplies. With a history dating back to 1967, this family-owned business offers everything families need to keep their pools clean and sparkling, from chemicals to equipment. Plus, customers enjoy free shipping on all orders. Visit Dohany's Pool Supplies today at doheny.com, DOHENY.com, to learn more. Forest Bluff Real Estate Team serves Illinois, Wisconsin, Lake Forest, and Lake Bluff. John Josephitis, Laura Lee Van Fleet, and of course Michelle Parnell. Get a free market analysis now at forestbluffrealestate.com. For the best cannabis in the world, look no further than Iliad Epic Grow. Owned by Lake Bluff's own Rich Ruzich, they are a cannabis cultivation center focusing on hard-to-find small batch products that will delight both the occasional user and ganjier. When visiting Michigan, ask for it by name. Epic Products, exceptional process. For more information, email info@iliadgrow.com. Havey Communications has been helping first responders arrive safely since 1983. It's owned by Lake Forest's own Mike Havey. Check them out at haveycommunications.com. We'd also like to say we're thankful for our Patreon supporters, Otto, John C., Helen, and Herrick.